Many people wonder whether they're an old soul or not, and this is a very interesting question. So, what are the characteristics of an old soul? An old soul is generally considered to be a being who has had many incarnations, let's say more than average. And as a result, this soul carries with it, through its incarnational experiences, a lot of knowledge and experiences that it's gained over many, many lifetimes. So typically, when they incarnate, they have a depth of perception and self knowledge that seems a little extraordinary. They may have intuitive knowledge and a sense of knowing about who they are and what they're here to do that other people may lack. Now, most importantly, from my perspective, I think one of the most important characteristics of an old soul is compassion. Old souls are generally compassionate because they have had many lifetimes in which they themselves had challenging or difficult experiences. And thus, they have a lot of empathy for other beings because they know deep within their heart how difficult being in three-dimensional reality can be. Whereas somebody who has had fewer incarnations might have less empathy for others just because they haven't had as much incarnational experience as an old soul. Old souls generally seem to have a degree of wisdom that belies their age sometimes. They sometimes, or if not fairly often, will have sort of unexplained psychic or extrasensory uh, experiences, even in their youth. They may feel out of place in their family environment and social environment, like they don't belong here, um, because they have had experiences of higher truth, which conflicts with their experience of reality. And so often as well, depending on how self aware the old soul is, they may feel like they want to get out of here. And in extreme cases, they may engage in forms of escapism because they find this reality very harsh and uncomfortable. They also may have difficulty forming typical social relationships with people because they want to connect with people on a very deep level, which is often not easily done in typical social settings because they have this awareness of being spiritually connected to other beings on a high level. So this can result in sadness and grief that these people will experience because they feel disoriented and like they're not home, like they don't belong here, like I said. Now, to me, um, I don't want to encourage that. I've had that experience myself throughout my whole life, but I do not find that that's not an empowering place to be. We chose on a higher level to incarnate here for reasons, and it's not accidental, and it was our choice to incarnate. So we should own it and take advantage of the opportunity as much as possible and have some gratitude for it. Even though it can be very difficult and challenging because old souls are empathetic and more sensitive generally than other people. But there is the great potential for the old soul to both evolve personally and make a lot of progress in a lifetime, as well as to be helpful to other people. And it might just be their energy itself, which they emanate, or it might actually be being a guide or doing healing work or so forth. Ideally, old souls connect with other old souls who they can share experiences with on a very deep level, because that will help them feel more at ease and more at peace in the world. So there's kind of a paradox because the more evolved and the more conscious you become, the more you realize how crazy this reality is and how distorted it is. I actually did a episode on reality is stupid, and it is. So that's the paradox of just having a higher level of awareness and which completely contradicts the reality that you observe and in many ways experience. So again, symptoms would be having a level of wisdom or understanding or knowledge that seems to be out of place with your life experience, being empathic and compassionate, having mystical or spiritual experiences or psychic experience or extrasensory experiences that might be out of character for the social environment that you grew up in or that you live within. Having a sense that you don't belong here, having a sense of sadness or grief about how cold and sometimes cruel reality can be. But also, if you do spiritual practice, you may find that you have very deep experiences in meditation, or you have some peak spiritual experiences that can be very deep and profound relative to other people, because on another level, you're very tapped into and connected to higher truth. Generally, it's a soul that has had many incarnations, is probably at the point in the wheel of karma where they are going back to where they started, as opposed to being out on an exploratory mission. They may be more introverted and like spending time alone just because they're very sensitive. And they have a deep and rich inner life. And of course, they have an interest probably in things like spirituality, mysticism, subjects like astrology, the occult, and so on, because they have had other lifetimes where they have explored these things. They may be natural and gifted healers. They may be natural and gifted readers. They may be natural and gifted channels or psychics. And they would almost certainly be very sensitive energetically. I'll add that there's more of a tendency to have faded or karmic experiences. And this is because the old soul is on a journey back into itself, to where it came from, as opposed to journeying out into experience. And so they need to clear or release a lot of karmic baggage in order to fulfill that mission, so that they can make this transition back to their higher state. If you're an old soul and you meet somebody else who's an old soul, you will have a knowing and a sense of familiarity with this person almost instantaneously. That's a very cool experience when you have a meeting of minds with somebody else who's an old soul. You just know it and sense it. You can almost sense it like across a room, even if you've never really met somebody before. I've had that experience too. When we meet another old soul, there can be this instant recognition. When I reflect on this topic, it actually brings up a lot of sadness within me, because I feel a tremendous amount of empathy and compassion for old souls, because this this three-dimensional reality that we live within, with all of its negative aspects, from a higher perspective, it can be very perceived and experienced as being extremely dark, and it is. Let's be real. And so I'm quite sure that before we incarnate, we sort of underestimate how difficult and how challenging it is to be incarnated on Earth. And when we get here, we go, holy crap. I didn't realize how difficult it is. And thus, I think that, and this has been true for me, that my whole life, I have been surrounded by a lot of a lot of beings who are supporting me on my journey, because they know that what I'm going through, and they're not experiencing it at this point in time directly themselves, but they understand what I'm up against here. And so I have a quite large support network of beings who are always around. I've had many experiences with very powerful beings, and many of whom you will know, and some of whom you won't. And I've always been like, why do they pay so much attention to me? Why do why do I deserve all this attention? Because they're always there, on some level, and especially when I really need them. And so, you know, from their perspective, I must be doing something that is that they recognize as being rather challenging. If I lacked this sort of higher awareness, I would just be sort of drifting along through life thinking, oh, this is all normal. Or that, I'm just going to live and die and that's it. Like that, with that attitude, you're kind of like, it's sort of a laissez-faire attitude about reality. But, if you have a higher level perspective of truth, then you're kind of going like, what the hell am I doing here? What did I do to deserve this? Um, so I do have this very, very deep, heartfelt sense of compassion and empathy for those who are in that situation, because I myself know what it's like to experience that. And thus, as I said, this is why old souls are compassionate, is we recognize how challenging this is. So I feel that very strongly right now, emotionally. And I'm pretty sure if you're an old soul and you reflect on this too, you will feel the same way. And I have something very important to say to younger listeners. If you're a younger person, say you're in your teens, and uh, you've Googled this or something or searched it, and you're listening to me right now, something very important, because I had this experience. I didn't encounter other people that I felt I could really connect with and be myself with until I was 18. Prior to then, I felt completely lost, and I felt like I would not survive until my that I would probably die by the time I was 25, because I felt so out of place here. It was very challenging the early part of my life. But then I eventually met people who I immediately recognized them and go like, oh my God, these are my people. So be patient if you're in that situation, and know that eventually you will meet people that you can connect with in a profound way and in a deep and meaningful way. And you might even be able to sort of seek them out. As I said, people who tend to be into spirituality and spiritual issues are probably people that you can at least share some aspects of yourself with that maybe you can't in your current social setting. And when you do connect with other people, it will change your whole life, because you will suddenly realize that you are not alone, and that you're not like a freak, or that you're not destined to be completely going through all this by yourself. So, it may be different these days because of social media and stuff like that, but in my day, like, you literally had to travel to to and be lucky to encounter, people that you could discuss, certain topics with. So, like I said, maybe with social media, it's easier to engage with others. But recognizing that you are not completely unique and completely alone is like critically important. And then you can sort of start to gravitate towards those people, and you'll know who to identify that's going to be aligned with you and who isn't, and that there is a place for you and your belief system in your reality and your personal experience uh, to share, because we really need to share that aspect of ourselves. That's how we reflect on our own state of being and our own development, is by discussing and sharing those things. Yes, we can contemplate, but that's kind of a lonely endeavor after some time. So yes, when I was commenting upon younger people, I actually got extremely emotional, because I know what that's like, and I've had that experience. And thus, it gets back to my main point about old souls being compassionate and why. Um, I literally had to stop recording when I started talking about people being alone, and especially young people, um, and feeling isolated. I had to stop recording like 8 times because I got so emotional. So I have a tremendous amount of empathy and compassion for young people who are here and who haven't found uh, people that they can connect with yet. So, in case you haven't figured this out yet, the whole point of this experience, and every experience that you will have until you realize this, is to realize that the only thing that's true and real is love. and anything that isn't love isn't real. And on that note, my friends, I will bid you adieu. Listen to Carole King, Tapestry, Only Love is Real.